Hello, and welcome to the Legacy Lines podcast. Today is Wednesday, November 27th, 2024. This is episode number 5. And Legacy Lines is where each episode is a journey into wisdom that shapes our lives. And I'm Jason, your guide through stories and strategies that forge exceptional paths. So here we will dive into the teachings that have not only shaped my life, but can redefine yours. From biblical landscapes that guide us to the financial acumen that builds empires. Join me as we unpack the tool sets for extraordinary results. This isn't just knowledge, it's legacy in the making. And it should be noted, I'm doing the bumper intro here with video, but today's episode is audio only. And I'm just so excited to have this inaugural interview episode be one of many that's coming. I have stated throughout this podcast that this is a catalog of wisdom for the ages, talking with fascinating people, digging deep on principles that apply regardless of life season or situation that you're in. And this interview format not only challenged me to ask compelling questions and review my performance as a interviewer and evaluate that I just frankly can talk too much with my own stories and make some adjustments there as needed, but also to inspire me to be more confident in asking people to share their story. Most people want to share their story and give away the success templates and hacks that have helped them. So in this episode today with Beth Olson, you're going to get just that. Wisdom for the ages. And it was such a delight to sit down with Beth at her home and be able to just have a real conversation of a dialogue that is impactful if you take the knowledge and apply it. So just this morning, I was in my place that I typically go and work in the mornings, and I'm still here for that matter, again, living a life that's not normal. And I encountered an individual here who's a business consultant, has been doing that for well over 30 years in the area. And I plan to have him on at a future time. And the light bulb just kind of went off, and we've grown our relationship just through proximity, meeting here at this place. And it's like he has so much wisdom that's impacted me professionally speaking with the different things he sees in his business. That it's just gave me again that confidence to keep going down the road of that these impactful interviews can be cataloged and categorized to go back to the well of the knowledge as needed. So without further ado, again, let's get in today's episode with Beth Olson, and here is that conversation. Thank you. All right, we're here with my friend Beth. It's going to be a great time today to get into a conversation with Beth about her story. And I'm so pleased that, first off, thank you, Beth, for being here.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And I want to set the table for really, shifting my focus into the next year of why I'm continuing to build this catalog. For those of you that have been listening, I'm building this repository, if you will, to give away to my children at a coming future date. And so one of the things that I'm going to be winding down, I believe in quitting things as well as sustaining things and long-term endurance. But one of the things I'm going to be doing this over the course of this next year is discontinuing direct mentorship with several individuals, but I'm going to start mentoring my own kids in likely a bi-weekly fashion. So as you know, this podcast is about breaking out from normal. And so this is a major theme of my podcast, to live a life that is not just normal or getting by. So again, these podcasts will serve as an archive of life lessons and fascinating people that I respect, not only to hear from me in a different format to my children and audience, but also to glean wisdom and insight from people that have impacted my life. And so I'm pleased to be here with Beth today. So again, thank you, Beth. So we're going to talk about Beth's story, and we'll dive into the journey from being a stay-at-home mom to building a successful
long-term life-changing business. And life-changing is what I want to focus on, because to me, Beth, it really has been life-changing for you and your family. And I think it's important. Words matter, and I want to call that out because I've personally watched your guys' life change right before my very eyes, which has been impressive, to say the least. And I want to explore what led you to take on this path of how you've sustained your dreams and lifetime callings all along the way. Like, did you have dreams? Did you have dreams of this, or was it a sudden thing, or was it, just synced up with stuff that you already knew about yourself from an early age? I just can't wait to get into that. And then how you broke away from normal expectations of whatever that looks like and embraced an entrepreneurial spirit. So without further ado, let's get into that. So Beth, tell me about, our relationship started in mid 2007. So we have some years.
Yeah.
I guess, what is that? Almost a little over 16.
Wow. Yeah.
So Beth knew me when I was 4. Just kidding. So in the early days, like back in what I'll call the early days of our relationship, can you share what life looked like? Like, what were you up to? What did the family dynamic look like? Just take yourself in the DeLorean and go back there, if you will.
That's what I was thinking when you were talking about 2007. I was like, man, what was life like at that time? And I had 4 small kids, so in the ages of 2 to 7.
Wow.
So, I mean, husband in ministry, homeschool mom with 4 small kids. I had 4 kids in 5 years.
Wow.
So it was fast and furious and very busy, as you can imagine.
Yes.
Yes. Like when you have 4 small kids at that age, like that, I feel like there's not really much time to do anything else.
Yeah. Is that like what I remember back to my wife and I's story is like almost like basic survival and keeping the peace, like you're winning the day.
Right.
If that happens.
Yeah. It's like if you get the laundry done, like, wow, bonus day.
I know. What about folding? Like if you get it, like it can be done and in the, in the basket for days on end, and you're still got clean clothes. But
yeah, definitely.
No, I can relate to that. So reflecting back on that, was there a moment or season where you felt like a shift and wanting to pursue something outside of the home? And was there a timeline there, or what inspired that? Or was it just a life that you were living out and going about your day to day? And, as kids, you shared with me before this podcast, as kids were growing up and launching, that presented maybe some ideas to what is in my future? Talk about that.
Well, yeah, because my entire life from the time I was just a little girl, like my only dream was to get married and have kids. That was like my entire goal. And I thought all my friends were talking about going to college or becoming teachers or different things. And I just couldn't relate to that at all. Like, I had no interest in anything else. But once my kids started getting a little bit older, and by older, I mean like the baby was getting to be around 7, 8, something like that.
Yeah.
All of a sudden I realized like, oh, there's going to be another season to my life, which kind of seems a little bit obvious. Like I should have thought about that, but it just never occurred to me. Like, oh yeah, there's way more life to come after, because I had kids at such a young age.
Right.
I mean, my first one was born when I was 23. So it set me on a path of really thinking about like, what else am I going to do in my life? What else is what's next? So just started thinking about like, what could I do? You and your brother also inspire me a ton, because you guys are so entrepreneurial, both of you, and so diligent, and have all these different businesses you were doing and all that. So I always looked up to people who are entrepreneurs and thought like, man, that's kind of cool.
Yep. I appreciate that. So thank you for that.
Yeah.
And at the time that was, was it a suddenly? Would you describe it as a suddenly? And or a short season of like, oh, this is new thinking patterns?
Yeah, it was definitely a suddenly when I had that initial thought. Like I remember where I was driving in Ankeny, Iowa, that 4-way stop, everything, where all of a sudden I was like, oh, wow, there's another season coming.
Wow.
Yeah.
Did you capture the moment then, or did you understand the impact then? Or was it, because you can receive what I would call revelation for those spiritual listeners out there. Beth and I are both Christ followers, so we believe in the gifts of the Spirit. And there's been moments in my life where it's like I knew it was divine, but maybe I didn't steward it in the moment. Was it divine? It sounds divine. And did you do something in the moment, or did it have to marinate a little bit?
I mean, for me, I feel like it's always a suddenly followed by a process.
Interesting.
So in the moment, all of a sudden I have like a thought that's like a knowing, a phrase, something like, oh, this is this thing. And then it's over weeks or months, kind of the unpacking, the figuring out where it's heading.
Yeah.
And a lot of times I do a lot of that unpacking when I'm at the time, like I love to mow my yard. So things like that, like when I'm just working, going for a walk, things like that, where your body's in motion, but you have lots of time to think.
Right.
Those are the times where a lot of that unpacking happens.
Interesting. Sometimes I call that like the blueprints, are being developed. I can look back and go, I got a fresh set of blueprints. Sometimes they were in full, and sometimes, to your point, required mining it out, unpacking, processing, leaning in prayer, those kinds of things. Yeah. Appreciate you sharing that. So it really came down to, was it a decision to believe or a decision to dream bigger? As you're curtailing down, launching a house full of children, did you have to cross that threshold of, like, have you always been a big dreamer? Because I look at you and I think, wow, you took initiative to go for something that was very unusual. So would you classify yourself as a dreamer?
I don't know if I'm so much a dreamer as I am an executor. So like if you do like the strength finders, they have like different categories that you lead with, and mine is executing, which sounds kind of violent, but I promise it's not.
Well, that was probably in the medieval days. It was more of a violent occupation. No.
But it definitely has to do with like, okay, I get an idea and I don't sit on an idea very long. My brain automatically starts thinking about how to execute this idea. And I'm either going to figure it out and step into it and move, or I'm going to move on past the idea and let it go.
Yeah.
And Christopher kind of gets kind of funny with me about it, because he's like, man, if I even mention something, you've already figured out how we're going to do it. We're already doing it. And I'm like, I just had an idea. Like, I don't even want to do that thing, but I just can't help it. It's the way my brain works.
Interesting. Tell me your thoughts on this. To me, ideas are everywhere. And those that take the action, it's a rare person to do that, although that's available for everyone. Yeah. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people don't even think of it as an option. And I think part of the reason why I think so outside of the box is because of my upbringing, because my parents were missionaries. And from the time I was 7, like multiple times they sold everything we owned and we moved to a new place and did something new. And weren't like confined to the normal kind of American way of upbringing. Yep. So I think I automatically just grew up thinking like, well, whatever we want to do, we'll figure out a way to do it and we'll just go.
Wow. So that's probably something that's all throughout your entrepreneurial journey. You can see probably touches of that. So absolutely. Like almost like in your DNA type of a thing. Yeah. I have questions formulating as I'm going, which leads me to believe it's like, do you try to give that away? And I'm going to skip ahead for a moment, and then we'll pause and get back to the chronological order. So that thing that we're talking about, that intangible thing that's inside of Beth, do you believe that that is something you can give away to your team members that work in your business now? Like, how do you approach that? Because what we're talking about is it is a skill, I believe. It can be a gifting that develops into more of a skill. Is that something that you try to give away on purpose, or have you given that any thought, I guess?
Yeah, it's very, just comes natural to me. And so even like in my business, we have a leadership team that we all work together to lead the entire organization. And they always look to me for strategy. Yeah. Like that's kind of my role on the team is strategy and how to get things moving. Like, which is great because we've all looked at strength finders and all of that to see how each person operates and how we, I guess one of my weaknesses in the area is that I can get frustrated with people. Like if they're not moving forward, which is fine. Like I have to bless and release people. Not everybody wants to think outside the box and move forward in the same way that I do. Yeah. But if they are ready and they're like, show me what to do, I'm going to run with you. Like we have so much fun.
Yeah. So this gets into a different vein, leadership, mentoring, those kinds of things. Yeah. So when you see somebody that's willing and ready and you're going to pour into them. Like you see it like fuel on the fire. Let's go, baby. Like ready to rock.
Oh yeah. I'll cancel whatever I'm doing to get on Zoom with them or a call. Like we're doing something. Like I have a coach right now this month that's going for some big goals, and I'm running neck and neck with her. Like she wants to work hard, I'm going to work hard with her.
Wow.
But I'm not going to work harder than they will.
Oh gosh, I could talk for hours about rooting for others more than they're willing to root for themselves.
It's
I struggle with that.
Pathway to burnout.
I struggle with that so much.
Yeah.
Let's noodle on this just for a second, because I need your opinion. I need some wisdom, Beth. Help me out. I have often encountered myself, because there's a trap that I fall into, that because Jason can do it, so can Joe. Yeah. And that applies to everybody, because I do believe that is available to people, but I can't get into their head and figure out what they're going through, their life season and all that. So when sharing advice, I struggle with, I'll share any knowledge anybody wants, but then the inability to act and on individuals' behalf, I find myself in situations where I'm rooting more for others than they take ownership for their own actions. I see potential in them even.
Yeah.
How do you process through some of that?
Well, we bounce the ball to them and wait for them to bounce the ball back. So it's like, if they act, then I'll act, but I'm not going to do more than they will. So we got to kind of play this game of throwing the ball back and forth.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. To me, that leads into like what I was just explaining, as it gets to be a boundary problem for myself. And I have to watch that, because I inherently just want to see people win. Like I am just for people. I want them to live a life that's more than normal and to be fully alive. And so that can overstep, honestly, boundaries for me sometimes. So I have to watch that. So let's turn the focus back to you. Thank you for humoring me in that. So, would you mind, before we dig a little bit deeper, for the listeners, would you mind giving me a quick overview of your business model and your team? Can we talk about that for a little bit? So what is it? What do you do? Who do you serve? Those kinds of things.
Yep. So I lead a team of health coaches, and we have all sorts of programs for people on all spectrums of the health journey. So whether people need to lose weight or gain weight, or they're like in optimization or like ultra athletes, whatever it is, we have programs and plans for them. Yep. And it's definitely network marketing, which is amazing because it allows you to build a team and reach people that you would never meet. It allows you to tap into multiple circles of influence all across the country. And it's crazy. I'll get on Zoom calls with people and meet people who their lives have been totally transformed. I never even knew they existed because they're, way down deep in my business somewhere. And here they've lost 100 pounds and like got their life back and come off medications and all of this stuff. And I'm like, I would have never been able to reach this person if it hadn't been for this business model. Right.
Now, are you comfortable giving the name of who that's under?
The company is Optavia. It's like Mamma Mia.
Mamma Mia. That's a spicy meatball.
And it's a publicly traded company. You can look them up online.
Awesome. And for those listening, we're very into finance on this podcast. Do you know their New York Stock Exchange call symbol?
Oh, gosh, no, but I should.
Google it, everybody. Just Google it. It'll be very easy. So thank you for And what about, team members, how have you, I'll use a crude term, headcount. I don't like it.
Yeah.
What is that? Where did you start and what have you done and what's that timeline?
Okay, I started in 2018, August 2018. Just me, signed up under my mom as my coach and just started sharing. And, it's network marketing. So talking to people, living my journey out loud. It takes a lot of kicking fear in the face. Like, what are people going to think of me as I start doing something totally different? Like people think of me as this quiet, stay-at-home pastor's wife.
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden I'm going to like shift the norm.
Yeah, right.
There's a lot of fear in that.
Yeah.
But then you also have to think like people really aren't thinking about me as much as I think they are, And so I just plowed forward. And now I've been with the business over 6 years and I have 300 coaches on my team.
Holy smokes.
Yeah.
Wow. That is, when you think about that growth if you will. And we spoke to prep for this yesterday, and you had expressed to me that there have been, for various reasons, a couple years of not so crazy growth.
Right.
But when you aggregate that out over 6 years now and some change, that's an incredible growth pattern.
Yeah.
To reverse divide 300 back into 6 years. That's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Appreciate you sharing that. And so thank you for talking about a rabbit hole. You know, I'll say it this way, what we in faith circles call it the fear of man, if you will. You know, there's expectations that we put on ourselves that everybody else thinks. But bringing it back home, I love what you said, like you got it. It can be real, but ultimately, when it came down to it, bringing it back inside of your household, when you and Christopher decided to move forward with a business, like what were some of the driving factors behind that choice?
Well, you know how I said, I remember I was at the stop sign.
Yep.
When I knew like, oh, there's another season coming. Well, it was the same kind of moment where I was in the laundry room taking the clothes out of the dryer, going and circling back to the laundry.
Man, I need to start doing more laundry.
I know.
This is amazing, the revelation and blueprints you get.
But a lot of times when there's like just that thing that drops in my spirit in a moment like that, I remember where I was. And I just remember that this thought, like, I have to make money. Not like I have to, but I'm supposed to.
Yeah.
Like, God is telling me to make money, which is the weirdest thing. I mean, like I said, I grew up as a missionary kid. I'm not attached to things. Like, we got rid of everything multiple times. I'm actually kind of a minimalist.
Yeah.
You know, I could probably live in one of those tiny houses and be totally happy. I just don't care about that stuff. But I just knew I'm supposed to make money, and I didn't know what it was going to look like. So I started going down a path of like, what could that look like? Should I get a job at a coffee shop?
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
like that wasn't going to make much, but it would be more than I was making as a stay-at-home mom.
Yeah.
Right. And it was because my mom got involved in this business before me, and I saw what she was doing. I saw the income she was generating while being able to work from anywhere.
Yeah.
You know, so this is something I could do from home. And then she actually asked me to be on her team and to do the business with her. And the business is willable, which means that all the business that my parents have built will be passed on to me and my brother.
Oh, fascinating.
Yeah. And
So that's almost like there can be legacy planning involved.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And so everything that I built in the business can combine with what they've built. And it's kind of like a family business. So
Wow.
she asked me to be a part of it. And I said, okay. So I jumped in.
Wow. And family and business it can be a taboo subject, and partnerships and all that kind of stuff. Some well-known people that I've gleaned from, the only ship that doesn't sail is a partnership. But at the end of the day, I believe that, you know, knowing a little bit of your family and your story, has that been the word that comes to mind, divisive? It's not a good word to use, but has it went well from a family dynamic perspective?
It's actually gone amazingly well.
And is that likened to a shared belief system, and an honor towards one another, or what would you point back to say that's why it's working? Because I've worked in family business as well, and I always rally around the fact of like a heart of preference can go so many places where a taker mentality just won't work. So let me rephrase it. Like a heart of preference, meaning I'm not out for just me. I'm out for a lot of other people. Goes back to rooting for others. Is that in your guys' dynamic, or how does that look?
Yeah, I mean, well, we already have a good relationship, and we have a lot of things in common. Like, you know, I'm like half my mom and half my dad.
Right,
you know?
right.
And so we have a lot of the same gift mixes, although my mom is much better at sales than I am naturally. It's been a learning curve for me. But the beauty of this business model too is that we only win if each other are winning. So we're not in competition.
That's good.
Because my entire team, like, we win as we all win together.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and I think that's almost baked into the cake in what you're describing. But at the same time, that's such a life principle as well. It's like, we at the church I belong to, and I'm very involved, I've mentioned on this podcast several times, and you know me in that capacity, we've developed a saying like, we all go up together. Somebody's promotion, we can ride the coattails of that thing with the right heart, and we all go up together. I love that. I just love that. So going back to you and Christopher, was it a mutual decision? Or was it kind of like, I don't know, or?
Yeah, I mean, it was actually a really easy decision. He
Yeah.
was all for it. In fact, I had been seeing other friends getting involved in this business before my mom even did. And I had mentioned to him, like, maybe you should do this. Maybe you should do this business.
Uh-huh.
And he was like, no, that's not for me.
He was
I never
like,
even
actually,
thought
why
about
don't you do it?
We never even talked about it. It never even occurred
Uh-huh.
to me until my mom just straight up asked me, will you do this with me? And I was
Wow.
like, yeah, actually I will.
So is there a principle there that I let me state my position before I ask you this question, so it's not like a baiting of you. I believe that we are presented very unique opportunities once in a while in our life, that if we have the tenacity and the faith to step through what I would call the window of opportunity, there's an art of developing habits to do that. Would you classify that as one of those opportunities?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was just curious on your thoughts on that. What's your thoughts on what I was articulating there?
I mean, it was a huge learning curve for me at the same time.
But that doesn't. When I've put myself in positions to be completely over my head, I can look back and go, that's when I grew the most. And
Yes.
I've gotten in a habit of like leaning into the uncertainty because I've developed a track record now with myself, with my family, that it pays off, that I'm gonna learn. I'm a lifetime learner. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I'm a lifetime learner as well. I love to learn stuff myself. I love to research and gather data, and then my thing is stopping the research and actually moving forward. But thankfully, my mom was like, "Hey, you want to do this?" I'm like, "Okay, I'm going to do
Wow.
it." You know, so
Very cool.
yeah. I mean, I think really, I'm not the same person I was before.
Is that because of the environment or because of obedience? Or when you say that, I've admired from afar. I have a glimpse of pre-Beth, pre-Optavia. Did I do it right? Okay. I have that. I have what I knew you as that. And then there's the post version of that. So why is that?
I mean, in our business and our company, they're great at mentorship and just like teaching leadership and all of the things, and all of that free training comes with your business. So
Wow.
even just going through the process of being an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Like if you're going to press through that process, you're going to grow.
That's true.
That's
true.
It just, you're either going to get discouraged and quit, or you're going to grow.
Right.
You know?
That's very, very true. Thank you for sharing that. So this leads into a segue here, and under the banner of challenges and growing the business, like, can you walk us through some of the earlier, even continuing challenges that you do face when starting out or ongoing? Because I want to go back to something you said, network marketing versus multi-level. What is that now? Because is multi-level not this? Explain to the listeners and my kids what this is.
Okay, so I'm not familiar with all of the different models
Uh-huh.
of all the different companies that do these things. But in our context, let's say in Optavia, it's network marketing because you're talking to all different people, but it is multi-level as well.
Okay.
Okay. So in our business model, you get paid only 6 lines down.
Okay.
Depending on how big your business is and what level you're in the business, you get paid a certain number of levels down.
Okay.
Okay, so what's really cool about only going 6 levels is it leaves plenty of money in the company to pay the people that are getting started.
Okay.
So my understanding of other companies from way back when is that they would go 100 levels down, or I don't even know. And so the people that were at the top are making a ton of money, and the people that were at the lower, like coming into the business, doing all the work, we're not making very much.
Right.
So anyway, the comp plan that we have is genius.
So it sounds like it's quite a bit flatter of an organization. I'll say it that way because of the 6 deep versus infinite might be the way to, or some astronomical amount that at the end of the day doesn't leave a lot on the quote unquote bone for people.
Yeah.
So
we get paid either by bringing in clients who we're helping with their health, or also helping business partners, new coaches, build their lines and help clients as well. So there's like a couple different buckets of pay.
I gotcha. But at the end of the day, is it would you classify it as networking or sales, or like it's a hybrid of both?
Both, and coaching, definitely.
That's a good point. Yeah.
I mean, a lot of companies, you're just selling whatever product, but in our company, we're not just selling a product, we're actually coaching people, which is a whole different animal.
Right. So I'm going to put you on the spot. Amongst those three, if we could categorize what you do down to those three buckets, what, in your opinion, is the most important one to lean into?
The most important, gosh, I don't know. My favorite one, I love helping the business entrepreneur-minded people build. That's my favorite part. I mean, the biggest struggle for me in the business has been, I used to think I was an introvert. I've gone on a journey where I don't think I am an introvert. I think I was just, had a lot of ego going on.
Yeah.
But being able to try to learn how to inspire people and be a more interesting person to people and put myself out there, that's been the hardest part.
Wow.
Getting to actually work with people and do the strategy and the behind the scenes building and the numbers and all of that sort of stuff, I love. But you got to do both.
Pardon me. So going back to some of the early or continuing challenges, I'll use your own words, like you had to really learn to put yourself out there.
Yeah.
And how's that going?
Yeah, put myself out there, overcome rejection of people who judge maybe what I'm doing, or like, well, yeah, that's nice for you, but I would never do that. They look at you like you're crazy, people who, people's expectations, the judgment, those things, continuing to reach out and share boldly, whether people are going to say yes or no, whatever they're going to think. You just keep going. Yeah.
Boy, I love that. Just keep going. It's like, what's the scene out of, is it Finding Nemo or Finding Dory? Just keep swimming. Just keep swimming. My kids and I talk about that. There's a principle there if we have ears to hear it, And with so continuing on here, because again, listeners, I could talk to Beth for hours about this stuff, but I'll spare you. Have stuff to do, so we're not going to do that. You've alluded to this, the many hurdles in entrepreneurship, especially at the network marketing. How do you stay motivated to handle those setbacks? Because you said there's a lot of rejection. How do you fight it? What's some of the go-tos? It's like, no, I'm not going to quit. Like, talk about that for people. Because I think that it seems so common sense once you develop the muscle memory of doing it, but it's often a treasure that eludes most. So how do you just not quit? If Beth could sit somebody down and go, I'm going to give you this secret sauce, what would you say to somebody?
I can see where it will go if I don't quit. I can look at people who've gone before me and what they've built in this business over years and see, like, if I don't quit and I keep sharing with people, this thing doesn't just add, it multiplies. So I already see how much it's grown so far. If I keep going, it's just going to grow and grow. And the lives that I'm going to impact, they're beyond what I could imagine.
Yeah.
And so you get stories of people whose lives are totally changed. I mean, that's inspiring, but also I just like it. Like, I like the puzzle of the business. To me, it's kind of fun. It's kind of like a game in a way.
Yeah.
Sometimes the game is going great and sometimes it's not, but you keep playing.
Follow-up question, do you believe that those, like, could you now, I'll say you've developed a lot of new skills or uncovered mentalities that you needed to confront. You've mined yourself out at a greater level. That's what I'm hearing from you. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
Now that you've done it in this business, to me, it's called transferable skills. You can take those skills and go many places because they work wherever you're planted. Do you see that for you to be able to walk into another business and just apply these same things that have been wildly successful for you?
While I can't imagine myself switching businesses, I can imagine that I would be able to.
Fair enough. Yep. Understood. Understood. So we talked a lot about that, breaking free from the normal, et cetera, et cetera. And what advice would you give to other either stay-at-home parents or individuals who feel tied to certain roles, but have not had a desire to explore something new? I encounter people that they're just stuck, you know, and of course, like we've already spoke, we can't get in their bodies and control them, although I wished I could.
Yeah.
What if somebody is just like, I need something new, you know, I want to take a step forward. How do we communicate that to people? How does Beth communicate that to people?
Yeah, I think the first thing is they have to even realize that it's possible, that you can do something different. I mean, there's a lot of people who never leave the town they were born in.
Wow. Yeah.
You know,
Yep.
and that just wasn't my life because I've traveled all around
Yep.
the world. So I've seen a lot of different contexts and things. But just being aware that there are things you can do. Like if you're not happy with the way that your life is right now, or maybe you just genuinely need more income, like
Yeah.
a lot of people do right now.
Right.
There are things you can do. There's a lot of options.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And then looking forward, like a big theme of this podcast is to keep our live in HD, keep our dreams alive and avoid complacency. What keeps, I mean, we've talked a lot about this already, but what are some of the goals that you haven't seen, if you're comfortable sharing, that you haven't seen materialize yet that you still hold on to today, where it's like, I view those as like future targets, because you said, out of your own words, you said,
Mhm.
I can see where the business can go. Can you share one or two of those? How does Beth dream about that?
yeah, I mean, I'm constantly reevaluating, like where are we? Where do we want to be? What's it going to take to get there? Like, what do we want the future to look like? What things do we need to stop doing? What things do we need to start doing?
Yeah, that's powerful.
All of those. And I mean, for me right now in this season, I'm like, I envision being 100% out of debt.
Yep.
Completely. No debt anywhere. And I want to travel.
Yep.
And I love that I can work from anywhere. So we went to Italy this last year.
Oh, wow.
It was my favorite place we've been. It was awesome. I'm like, I would love to go back to Italy and just stay for a few weeks and work from there, you know?
And so, to interrupt you, to give the listeners some sort of a flavor of a world. So Italy's topping the list, everyone.
It
Beth,
is.
rattle off just in your short-term memory where you've been at in the world, because not only is Beth amazing, she's a world traveler,
Oh my
grew up a
goodness.
missionary kid. So Italy tops the list, is what?
Italy tops the list of where I've been so far. I mean, I lived in Mexico and Guatemala as a kid. I had my 9th birthday in El Salvador.
There's 3.
Yeah, I've lived in Australia.
Wow.
I've been to New Zealand and Papua New Guinea and Vanuatu and Canada. I mean,
And so
and
Italy.
Argentina. We lived in Argentina for 3
Yeah.
months. Yeah, but yeah, Italy is pretty special.
Wow. So add that to the bucket list then? Is that
Yeah.
a safe add to the
Yeah,
bucket
and there's
list?
a lot of other places. I love architecture, old
Oh, yeah.
castles and cathedrals and all that stuff. So anywhere where that's at, I want to go.
I know we live in such a new world over here. You know,
Yeah.
it's like almost 200, or granted the land has obviously been here a long time,
Right.
but just what we know is, you know, modern America, less than 250 years old, et cetera, et cetera. So looking to the future, like as someone who shifted from one life season to another very successfully, what kind of legacy do you hope that leaves for your children or for those who know you?
I hope that it inspires my kids to know that, like, whatever their dreams are, whatever's in their heart to do, they can find a way to do it, you know?
Yeah.
And that it provides even finances to help them get started in that as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah. Going back to that legacy, I wasn't able to benefit from like a generational legacy planning family mentality, but I know I have, that is one of my big dreams. When my wife and I sit down and talk about what does the financial handoff look like, it's significant because we want that for our children, and we want to hopefully instill in them, because we all know the person who got a lot of money and they didn't have the emotional capacity and the maturity to handle it, that all along the way we're bringing them up in that. So when I think about legacy, it's like when we leave the face of the earth, you know, our ceiling is their floor type of a thing. I just so desire that as a life goal. So, and I guess closing this out, Beth, like, I just want to just say again, like, I've just so appreciated your tenacity to think different. And to be honest, I don't know you that well. Quantifying the relationship, I'd say we know each other like third person in a way, because the linchpin is I served on your husband's worship team for many years. And
Yeah.
And so there's a proximity effect there. And again, being an observer from afar, I just want to honor you to, you're a dedicated wife and mother and a thriving business owner who's been inspiring. So it's a reminder to me and our listeners that life can bring new opportunities at any stage. And I just fully believe that. Like, the best is yet to come is how I say that.
Absolutely.
So just closing out, like, how can people find you on socials if they're interested in joining your team, either as a customer or as a team member? Tell us all about that.
Yeah. So at this point, like, my biggest presence on social media is Facebook for sure. So it's Beth L. Olson, Olson, or BethLOlson.com.
And that's just a direct message to you, or
Absolutely.
contact me on the website. Okay.
Yeah.
And we're a lot about building your financial portfolio on this podcast. We believe in that. We believe that if work is one of the major things that takes us away from our family, we're going to make as much money as we can in the shortest amount of time possible. So if you're looking to do that and you're looking to be mentored and coached by a great individual, contact Beth. And I know she's a quality individual your life would be blessed by becoming a colleague of or a customer of. So Beth, thank you so much. Do you have any closing comments?
Thank you so much. This is an honor.
Thank you, Beth. Appreciate you, and keep on keeping on.